Welcome back to the show here, guys, to talk about one of the most entertaining games that we saw arguably all year. It's been back-to-back weeks now, right? If you go back to last week and the Steelers and Bengals game last week, where they set the record for the most points in, this season, I guess the present season record. They put up 82 points last week, and now this week, the Rams and the Buffalo Bills game, surpassed that. They put up 86 points yesterday in a 44-42 victory for the Los Angeles Rams in a narrow, nail-biting game that had offense coming out of everywhere, right? We saw the special team score a touchdown, Puka Nacua going crazy, Josh Allen arguably playing better than all of the guys that I just mentioned. It was nuts just watching it live and just, being glued to your seat watching. I think the highest level and the epitome of offense was shown yesterday, and I don't even think I'm overhyping it, honestly, because with that victory, the Rams are now 7-6. They're 8th in the playoff race now, and they're only one game behind of Washington for that last wild card spot, and they're still in the race for that division, right? I keep saying that for the Rams and the NFC West, it always feels like there's only going to be one team to make the playoffs from that division, and it's going to be whoever wins that division. And I think the Cardinals have kind of, been left in the dust, being swept by the Seahawks. The Seahawks have still yet to play the 49ers. They split with the 49ers. They swept the Cardinals. They have one more game left with the Rams. And the Seahawks have not been swept, obviously, where the 49ers have a losing record in their division. The Cardinals, like I mentioned, have just been swept. And I think it's just coming down to the Rams and Seahawks. So that game coming up is going to be such a entertaining game to watch because there's going to be so much on the line, obviously, right, for these playoff reasons. So that's what happened on the Rams side, right? What good came from this victory, a huge victory, again, over the Bills, not just for all those reasons, but because you get the moral victory, right, of beating the Bills, one of the best teams in the NFL. You put up this amount of points on them. Of course, they also scored a lot of points on you, but you were able to outlast them, which I think just makes it even more exciting. But also along those lines, it's hard to say that it was a bad loss for the Bills, right, because it feels worse because you look at the circumstances, right? It's crushing because it breaks a 7-game winning streak, but more importantly, it drops them to 10-3, and now they're 2 games back of the Chiefs for that number 1 seed. And the AFC East was always, in their hands, even if I didn't believe it, and I openly admit that. I didn't think they were going to be good, but it was always in their hands right out of the gate. Probably around week 5, you kind of felt that the Bills were pretty legit this year, and if the Dolphins or the Jets didn't really step up, they were going to run away with it, and that's exactly what happened. So that was always going to be the first goal, right? All the teams say that, but to be in a position after beating the 49ers, I would say, and, locking up the division, you're feeling good. You're feeling great. You already beat the Chiefs, who are 1 game ahead of you, but unfortunately, you lose this game, and now it's looking a little bit tougher, especially with next week's game being against the Lions, that the Bills ultimately, end up getting that number 1 seed. It's kind of hard to see that play out. But also for Buffalo, what else can you say about Josh, right? We thought we saw his MVP performance against the 49ers, but little did we know, I have it up here for you guys, little did we know we were going to get this from one guy carrying his team to the utmost, level of what that phrase actually means, right? Josh Allen, total combined between rushing and passing yards, accounted for 424 total yards and 6 touchdowns just himself. All of that, that's crazy. The amount of offense he produced for his team is all up there for you guys to see, and it is crushing because you still lost, right? It's not like he did this in a win, but it's just unbelievable what he's doing. The first player in NFL history with 3 passing touchdowns and 3 rushing touchdowns in a single game as well. And on the other side of things also, just overall, the Rams needed all the offense they obviously produced, and they even blocked a punt on top of that to defeat Buffalo and really defeat Josh Allen because he was on another level yesterday. And the Rams definitely needed all 44 points that they put up, the contribution from their special teams to get away with a 2-point victory in the end. But You want to talk about offense, right? Josh Allen clearly stole the show, but he wasn't the only one to put up big numbers. Josh Allen was one on the Bills side. Khalil Shakir had a nice day. 5 receptions, 106 yards, and a touchdown. Amari Cooper, 6 receptions, 95 yards, and Matt Collins and Ty Johnson also scored some receiving touchdowns. Then on the other side of things, you had to match it somehow if you were the Rams. And Matthew Stafford didn't fall too far behind. He had 320 passing yards, 2 touchdowns. He, of course, isn't going to give you the rushing output that Josh Allen does, but the Rams got plenty of that from Kyren Williams with 87 yards and 2 touchdowns. Blake Corum looked pretty decent in the snaps that he got, and they totaled 137 rushing yards on the day through 3 guys, right? But then on the receiving end of things for the Chargers, it was all about Puka Nacua. 12 receptions, 162 yards for Puka, and a touchdown. Just completely, there was no answer for Puka yesterday. There was no answer. The zone wasn't working. They tried to blitz Matthew Stafford and get the ball out quickly, but he was getting the ball out even quicker than they were even getting to him. And Puka was beating man coverage. He was finding the spots in zone coverage. There was nothing really that the Bills defense, could have provided as an answer for Puka. It was complete dominance from him. Cooper Kupp also scored a touchdown, 92 yards as well, to the Rams' efforts. But this game, I can't go through every single thing that happened because we'd be here for probably like 10 minutes trying to go through everything that happened. But at one point, the Rams had a 24-14 lead actually going into halftime, which in the first half included 4 touchdowns on offense, 1 field goal, 1 punt, and 1 blocked punt return, return for a touchdown. All of that happened in the first half. And for a lot of the games we've seen this year, that's probably a game's worth of things that happened in some of these games. But that was only the first half. They only punted 1 time in the first half, which was nuts. And the second half really was no different, right? You had 7 touchdowns on offense in the second half and only 3 punts. 2, really. The last one doesn't really count because, it just ended the game. So, really, you had 2 punts and 7 touchdowns on offense in the second half, which I guess just toppled the first half. And the level we saw in the first half was definitely outdone from what we saw in the second half. And it really got interesting when at one point in the second half, the Rams were up by 3 points, 38-35, with under 4 minutes to go. And instead of settling for a field goal, right, where they were facing a 4th down, and, there was, not little time left, but there was little enough time left where you're thinking, all right, can our defense do something here? There's not really too much time left, so is a field goal really going to make the difference? The answer is always no when you're playing Josh Allen, Patrick, Lamar, any of those guys, Joe Burrow, any of those guys, right? If you go up by 6 points and you give the ball back to them, especially the way Josh was playing in this game, right? We didn't get the final stat sheet, right, until obviously the end of the game, but the way he was just dicing up your defense, there was no way you give the ball back to him with 3 or over 2 minutes left in this game. It's just not going to happen. So they went for it. They went for it. Instead of settling for a field goal, they got the 4th down conversion. Not only did they get it, trying to put more points up, but the most important thing was they were able to chew off a lot more of that clock, and ultimately they ended up scoring a touchdown on that when Puka Nacua took that screen pass to the house, and now they built up a pretty decent lead again over the Bills. But the Bills on their following drive, they got to the goal line with about 1 minute and 6 seconds left. 3 timeouts at this point. So a lot of people are thinking they're going to punch it in. They're going to have 3 timeouts. They're going to kick it off regular, and they're going to have an opportunity at least. But they ran a quarterback sneak that didn't happen. So they used the timeout at that point in time. And then they did score on the next play, but you really would have liked to have kept all 3 timeouts. And now instead of trying, a regular kick, you had to try the onside kick, which almost never works. And from that point on, the Rams kill the remaining time on the clock. And on that play, on that decision to go for a quarterback sneak, I know, I actually don't know what the analytics would say, but in that situation, I know Josh Allen gets that to go about 98, 99% of the time, but I feel like you have to know, again, 98% of the time Josh gets it, but there's still that like 1% chance that you don't get it. And to me, in those situations where you literally have to be so perfect to mount any sort of comeback like that, you have to eliminate all chances. If there's 0.1, if there's half, if there's 1% chance, that's enough for me. You have to eliminate all other chances of things going wrong. Like we just talked about, like the Rams eliminating all of the Bills' possibilities to try and come back in this game. They went for it on fourth down, right? Because if you kick a field goal, relating it back to that situation, there's still that chance, right, that they can score a touchdown, right? There's no guarantee that your defense now stops them. With the idea to try to eliminate all possibilities of the other team, coming back on you, you go for it on fourth down. And in this situation, I think with the idea of QB sneak it and how certain it looks, it's not 100% guaranteed that he gets it. And obviously, he didn't. And you have to know that the downside of that, the things that happen when you don't get it are much worse. Obviously, the risk isn't worth the reward in that situation. Again, all but guaranteed on how it looks. It's not a for sure thing to happen. And I would have opted for passing it because you could argue that, oh, if you pass it, it could get intercepted or it could be incomplete anyway. There's no way you 100% get it, which is true, but the difference is that one stops the clock on their own and the other one keeps the clock running, right? If you pass it and you don't get it, the clock's not moving, so you don't have to waste a timeout, and then you can QB sneak it if you want. So I think trying to run there and knowing that you could not get it, I think was a pretty, decently sized mistake by Sean McDermott in that part. But, something else to just mention here about the Bills is that the running defense seems to be a bit of a problem because in all of their losses, not only have they been on the road, which is a little concerning, knowing that you could be on the road for arguably the biggest game this year, if you make it that far, is that they've allowed 137 rushing yards yesterday. They allowed 271 to the Ravens, and 94 to Houston without Joe Mixon. So that could have been even worse. But that's all of the losses the Bills have had, and it's been the same pattern in each one. So it's obviously a problem not being able to stop the run, but I think the defensive backs in man-to-man coverage are not very good. There's not one guy that you think, oh, he's about to shut down this receiver, right? You look at other guys, you maybe think of Marlon Humphrey, Trent McDuffie, I'm trying to think of who else. There might not be a lot of guys. Pat Surtain with the Denver Broncos. You don't have one of those guys. So the Bills predominantly run a lot of zone. But when you have an offensive mind like Sean McVay and the weapons that they have, they destroyed that zone yesterday. So you're already feeling uncomfortable in man-to-man, so you're trying to send in a lot more people to try and get the Matthew Stafford. And, in one-on-one coverage, you think you'd like your chances, but you have man-beaters on the other side, right? Cooper Kupp in one-on-one, he's getting that 8, 9%, 9, or, yeah, he's getting it 8 or 9 out of 10 times in that situation. Same thing with Puka. And we saw it yesterday, right? Puka in man, Puka in zone. Everything was working for them. So it was going to be a shootout. And Josh, thank God for Josh, right? Being able to answer. But, it's a tough situation with the Bills defense. I don't think they're awful or anything like that. But, it is something to just keep an eye on, right? In these games where they might lose, and they haven't lost a lot, right? But you try to eliminate those possibilities and where you can improve. And I think that's one where right out of the gate, you knew the kind of runs that Kyron was pulling out, that they were going to have success running it. And also, you can get even deeper into it, talking about the run success, then the play action, and it opens up even more that way. But, yeah, the Bills are still obviously a good team, but this game, definitely hurt more for the Bills, obviously, because it feels like they let an opportunity slip by to try and catch the Chiefs in this game. So, it is what it is now. More likely than not, they're going to have the 2 seed and still host a couple playoff games before, like it looks like, ultimately going up to Arrowhead. But Speaking about a fellow number 2 seed, the Philadelphia Eagles also played yesterday, and even though they got the win, a lot of people are not happy about it. How could you be upset after a win, getting your 9th win in a row? We're going to talk about it. Why were the Eagles so upset, and whether or not we should worry, just like they are, it seems, after yesterday's victory. We're going to touch on that coming up next.
Looking for